Pathmonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in the buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding Pathmonk to your website in seconds, letting the artificial intelligence do all the work, and increase conversions by 50% while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. Welcome to today's episode of Pathmonk Presents. Today, we are joined by Kashish, Jain. Kashish is a marketing professional with a few years of experience under her belt. Kashish, Cash, rather say, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm all good. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And you actually said my name right. So brownie points for that. But I'm so excited to be here and to answer all the questions you may have for me.
Likewise. We're excited to have you on, and let's start with the basics, Cash. So, what's the big idea behind your company? And if you're explaining it to a friend over coffee, how would you describe what you do at Bold Group?
Right. So if you'd say my elevator pitch would be that I work at Boge Group currently, and recently I pivoted my career to be a little more client facing because I realized my strengths lie there. It's a company called Boge Group that help clients get 0% interest funding by helping them apply to various credit cards. So a lot of time people want to start their entrepreneurial journey and they're always like, where do I get the money? I have like no money to start the kind of business I want to. And a lot of times when you go to a bank to get a business loan, they're going to charge you a big amount of interest, right? So we eliminate that part in what we do. And we've helped over like 3,000 people get interest funding. And it is so purpose driven. It feels so good to see them get the funding they want and finally follow their dreams.
Well, that sounds super helpful, to be honest. Do you find yourself working with a certain type of business, maybe an industry where you feel that, your product really shines right now, or is it across the board, so to speak?
Yeah. So in my career, I realized that a lot of times we may focus on just the role, but I also like to focus on the industry. And because I'm very focused on purpose and meaning, I find myself working with companies whose ideas I resonate with. Like over here, like I said, we're helping tons and tons of people get 0% interest funding. That's a financial sector. But in the past, I worked for EMS companies, for startups. I do see myself working for startups because it is so driven, right? Like your any work that you do will actually add up on a day-to-day basis to the progress of the company. And I absolutely love the high pressure environment. So my industries would always be something creative, purpose-driven, and high growth.
Right. I can attest to that. Pathmark is a startup, a fairly young one too, and no day is the same, right? There's always something happening, but it's fun. It's dynamic. It keeps changing, and it keeps you on your toes, so to speak, right? So I can totally relate to what you're talking about there. Um, so I'm curious, how do most people discover you? Maybe there are channels that have become your go-to for bringing in new customers, new clients, or leads, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for both ways, LinkedIn is a really good platform. You can do that, right? Like just like you did. And I think LinkedIn is a great way to reach people when people want to find you, when they want to scout you, and for finding client leads. But a lot of times I've seen that word of mouth works really well too. And I think in the marketing world, word of mouth is very, very underrated. We always digitalize everything, but if you give a client a good service, right? If that's a quality client, they will speak about you and you will work on referrals. So that is one thing we really like to focus on as well.
Well, that's a good point, and I think word of mouth will always be relevant, right? There's not going to be a point in time in history where that's not the first thing that people rely on, right?
Yeah.
But also, we live in a digital age, so I'm curious, how much of a role does your website play in pulling in, new customers for the business?
So when we talk about the design aspect of a website, I think it's very important. We live in a world where people's attention span is reducing day by day, right? So these days,
Yeah.
people don't read, they skim. They want to just like, they'll spend like 5 minutes on your website and they would already have judged it, right? So you want to make sure that you have a very good call to action on your website. But when it comes to the search engine optimization part of your website, you want to make sure that you're absolutely killing it with the keywords, you know? You want to rank on the first page, you want to be in the top of everything that your industry is doing. So there are two aspects to a website, and I think it is important to ace them both.
This is where I think your background in SEO shines really, because that's the first thing you went to, right? So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I couldn't agree more. Um, from your experience, and I know that right now you have a more client-facing role, being a client success manager at Bolt Group. But what do you think actually makes a website convert? Do you have any, let's say, maybe favorite tools, tactics, or little tricks up your sleeves that have worked wonders for you?
Yeah, well, so when we focus on just the website part, you'd be surprised to see how many other channels drive your audience to your website, right? So, with the founder of my company, for example, he has an amazing YouTube presence, okay? He's always running YouTube ads, he's always running Instagram ads, he has a great following on Instagram as well. He keeps creating content that drives a lot of traffic to our website. So, I think there are a lot of external factors that actually drive your website and put you in the top few.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, there's going to be a few things that work well, right? And you have to identify them and also double down on them when you do understand they're working. So sounds like you guys have, cracked the code in a way.
We're trying.
But yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. No, I was just saying that, marketing is a field that you can't really think you know it all. Like every day something is changing. For example, in January, this trend came up called sensory marketing. And a lot of brands, especially skincare brands, started using sensory marketing, which absolutely blew my mind. It's basically like when you compare an object with like a food item or something. So we keep trying to like adapt to different trends. I was working with another company called Fitty Energy right before this, and we try to incorporate so many different trends on our social media. So you gotta like keep experimenting with everything, and that is just my most favorite aspect of marketing.
That's a keyword I like hearing, experimenting, keep experimenting. Maybe we can talk about experimenting a little bit, but on a different topic, let's say I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about you, right, as a leader. What does your typical workday look like for you? And we can expand because I know we talked about it offline for a second. You're into personal growth. I also am into it. So I would love to kind of, start from the beginning, as they say, and include, what does your routine look like outside of work so that you go into work and that you're more productive, more, that you're doing things with more purpose and meaning, as you mentioned. Can you give us an idea of, what are the main things you focus on day to day?
Right, that's an amazing question. I'm glad you brought that up. So like I said, I like focusing on purpose. And with that comes a lot of self-awareness. Only when you're self-aware can you truly realize what you want and what your dream life looks like. So I just try to break it down into really small actions. Call me old school. I literally still keep journals. I still write in my journals. Like almost on a daily basis, I would write, okay, this is what my vision board is. This is what I want my life to look like. How can I already act like I have my dream life? What can be my actions today so that I can, eventually have my dream life? And I think just practicing that has really helped. It comes with a lot of introspection. It comes with a lot of reading. It comes with a lot of reflection in a way that, okay, I need to change this about myself. So what can I do to change this and actually become a better person? And it's so crazy that just small practices like this helps you in your career as well. It not only in your personal relationships,
Mm.
but also in your career in the bigger picture. So that's that.
Right. That's kind of an holistic approach, let's say, to life in general, right? You have to be aware of what you need to do and then take action. And by the way, I would say old school actually works best
Yeah.
in a sense that we are flooded with content out there today. So I guess in a way that would kind of lead me to my next question. how do you stay focused on and keep learning? And maybe, if you can mention a certain places, people, routines you turn to for inspiration or staying ahead, that would be amazing, I think, for the audience and for me personally.
Yeah. Well, to be focused, I think it's very important to be focused on the bigger picture. To eventually realize that in the end, it's not, even if times are hard, you're going to realize that in the end it's not going to be like this. The focus on the bigger picture actually helps you stay very positive in the present. Anything good or bad can always be temporary, so you have to focus on what it's going to look like, what it's supposed to look like, and it really does help you plan your day to day out like that. And also, recently I started meditating. This is very
Hmm.
cliche, but meditation really really helps. It helps you stay more present in your current surrounding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's crazy that, people kind of, scoff at meditation sometimes because at the end of the day, it's just the act of sitting still, not doing anything. But we're such in a, rushed, kind
Yeah.
of hyper stimulated environment all day and every day that we can't even fathom being in that state, right? But it actually helps us become more present, more grounded, more calm. So I think that's a great habit to have. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I love that you said that we're surrounded by so much content. Like, what is life outside of digitalization, right? What happened to traditional marketing? It's not like it doesn't work anymore. It still does. The other day I live in Miami, right? And the other day I was walking on the street and I see this little bot, like this little robot, which was so freaky for a second. And I was like, wait, what is this? So like I actually went close to it and I see that it was marketing for a Netflix show.
Hmm.
It's a show called Electric State that's coming up, and they were marketing by sending that bot in the entire city. And I was like, this is genius because they say that to remember any product or a service, you need to see something for 3 seconds, and that's it. If you see something for 3 seconds, it's going to stay in your head. And there are some companies who are like absolutely killing it at this game.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we can learn a thing or two from Netflix when it comes to marketing. Funny you mentioned that show. I think it came up to my suggested shows the other day. It's coming up, and it's pretty cool to know. Yeah, they're sending a bot around. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah. So Cash, let's kind of go into the next segment of the interview, if you will, because we're about to wrap things up. We like to keep things fun and engaging on Pathmark Presents. So what we do typically, we go into rapid fire question segment, right? And what that is really is just, a few questions. And the only unspoken rule we have is that for a crisp and concise question, we expect a crisp and concise answer. Are you ready for that?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So, what's the latest book you've picked up?
It's called Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Okay.
It's a book. Oh, can I explain it or it just
Yeah,
has to
yeah. I
be?
was gonna say any gems or ideas that really stuck with you?
Yeah, so the general idea of the book is that all human beings, many of them think that when you're good, you can stop, because you just like, you aced being good at something, but what if there's more? What if there's more to that concept? What if there's more to you? So why not be good to great, right?
Yeah, beautiful. I was gifted that book for my birthday, I think 3 years ago, and you just reminded me, it's one of those that I need to pick back up.
Yeah, you need to.
Yeah. Okay, so if you had a magic wand and could fix one frustrating thing in your work life with tech, what would it be?
I think a dashboard that summarizes your metrics for you. Like in marketing, you're like either running campaigns or you're fixing your social media, you're learning about different trends, you're fixing your website. But what if I could have a bot that would just like summarize it all for me and that would be my, performance metrics guru for anything that I would ever need?
Kind of like a coach in a way.
Exactly.
All right, that's cool. Um, what's one repetitive task that you love to put on autopilot forever?
Reporting, we actually do that at Bow Group right now. So every meeting that we ever have has an AI called Otter AI that summarizes whatever was said in the meeting. And I think that's been really helpful because it prevents you from like taking notes and you have it with you.
Mhm.
So that's really smart.
That's cool. So you have your full focus on the conversation. You don't have to,
Exactly.
think really besides what's being said and what you want to say, right?
Absolutely.
That's cool. Okay. So curious, if you could give yourself, if you go back in time, right? And give your past self a quick pep talk at the start of your journey, what advice would you drop?
Well, I think it would be to always remember to focus more on consumer psychology. I think sometimes we forget that marketing is not about you, it's about what the customer wants to see, right? If you could just focus on being in their head and just knowing what they want to see, what they want to
Hmm.
hear, and if you just focus more on the consumer side of the marketing aspect, that would be something that can go a long, long way.
Okay, that's powerful. Well, Cash, I want to thank you for being on the show with us today, and also want to give you the last word. So if someone forgets everything about the interview today, what's one thing that you should remember about the work you're doing?
It's always about the client. Your success is always contingent to your client's success. So always remember that. When you bridge your gap, you'll find yourself go places in your career. That's all I would say.
That's how you go. You go from good to great, right?
Well, we try.
Awesome. Well, Cash, thanks again for being with us today, and I hope to see you again soon before the end of the year, maybe.
Thank you so much for having me, Rick. He is doing some amazing work here, and I absolutely recommend watching his podcasts.
Thank you so much. All right, appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.